Assalamualaikum warahmatllahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone. Let me introduce myself. My name is Siti Nur Solekhah. I'm an English education student at Muhammadiyah University of Semarang. In this video, I will explain you about the verb phrase. So, let's get started. First, we will discuss about what is verb phrase. Verbs are words that are used to describe an action like swim, drive, teach, and walk. A sentence can only be considered complete if it has at least one verb. The verb can either be an action verb or a linking verb that links the sentence subject to additional information regarding the subject. The information tells more about the subject. A verb phrase can also be defined as part of a clause or a sentence comprising a verb and at the same time describe more information about the subject. It can also be described as a phrase that acts as an adverb or adjective and comprises a verb and its complement, which may be either modified or adject. Now we will move to categories of the verb phrase. In the verb phrase, there are 7 categories of which are transitive verb, intransitive verb, detransitive verb, intensive verb, complex transitive verb, prepositional verb, and imperative. So, the first category is transitive verb. A transitive verb is a verb that requires a direct object, which is a noun, pronoun, or noun phrase that follows the verb and completes the sentence meaning by indicating the person or thing that receives the action of the verb. Example is Kate hugged the baby. We can see that Kate as subject, hugged as predicate, and the baby as direct object. We can see the use of transitive verb in this sentence. In this sentence, there are a direct object, that is the baby, which explains or completes the meaning of the sentence from Kate hugged. Alright, now let's analyze the 3 diagrams of transitive verb. From the 3 diagrams, we can see examples of previous sentences that have been divided into noun phrase and verb phrase. The noun phrase is reduced to a noun and is occupied by Kate, while verb phrase is divided into 2, namely a verb as a transitive and noun phrase. The verb is occupied by hugged. Noun phrases are subdivided into determiners occupied by did and nouns occupied by baby. The second category is intransitive verb. An intransitive verb is one that does not take a direct object. In other words, it is not done to someone or something. It only involves the subject. The opposite of an intransitive verb is a transitive verb. A transitive verb can have a direct object. An example of an intransitive sentence is Ken snores. As we can see from the slide, that Ken functions as subject, while snores function as predicate. We can see that the word snoring can stand alone without requiring an object as a complement. Okay, let's move to analyze the sentence. From the previous example sentence, we can divide them into noun phrase and verb phrase. The noun phrase can be reduced a noun which is occupied by can, meanwhile snores functions as a verb from an intransitive verb. Now let's compare the following sentence. The first sentence is Ken snores very loudly. Ken here as the subject, snores as the predicate, and very loudly as the verb. And the second sentence is the baby cried in the night. The baby as subject, cried as predicate, and in the night as adverb. So, what sets them apart? Okay. The adverbial a in 7a has the form of an adverb phrase, but the adverbial a in 7b has the form of prepositional phrase. Okay, now let's analyze the two sentences with three diagrams. The first sentence can be broken down into noun phrase and a verb phrase. The noun phrase is reduced to the noun occupied by can. Verb phrases are divided into two parts, into transitive verbs and adjective phrases. Verb is occupied by snores, meanwhile the adverb phrase is still broken down into two parts, namely degree, which is occupied by very, adverb, and occupied by loudly. Moving into the second sentence, the sentence is divided into noun phrase and adverb phrase. Noun phrase are broken down into two parts, namely determiners and nouns. They are a determiner, the as a determiner, and baby as a noun. Meanwhile, the verb phrase is divided into intraverb and prepositional phrase. Cried as a verb, while prepositional phrases still have to be broken down into prepositional and noun phrase. In as a preposition, the as a determiner of a noun phrase and night as a noun of a noun phrase. Okay, next is the transitive verb. The transitive verb are verbs that can take two objects. The first object is called the indirect object because it is indirectly affected by verb. The second object is called the direct object. We can see the two examples. The first example is Ray told the children a story. Ray as subject, told as predicate, the children as indirect object, and a story as direct object. The second example is Shu gave a jumper to Oxford. Shu as subject, gave as predicate, a jumper as direct object, and to Oxford as indirect object. Then, let's analyze the two examples. We start from the first sentence, which is divided into noun phrase and verb phrase. The noun phrase is reduced to the noun occupied by Ray. while the verb phrase is divided to verb deterrent, prepositional phrase, and noun phrase. Here, we can see that the verb is detransitive because there is a direct and indirect object. The verb is occupied by thought, then the as a determiner, as a derivative of a prepositional phrase, and children as a noun. As a determiner, and very is a noun as a derivative of a noun phrase. Now let's look at the second sentence. The second sentence can be divided into noun phrase and verb phrase. The noun phrase is lowered into the noun occupied by shoe. Give as a deterrent verb derived from a verb phrase. Is a determiner, and a jumper is a noun as a derivative of a noun phrase. To as a phrase, and Oxfam as a noun as a derivative of a noun phrase. The next category is intensive verb. Intensive verbs are also called copular verbs, are usually followed by a noun or a noun phrase, an adjective or a prepositional phrase. Intensive means to focus on one thing, in this case the subject. The words or phrases following an intensive verb work as the subject complement. Intensive verb can be relational, linking, or copular. Here, the transitive verb functions as the subject complement. We have 3 examples. The first is Sally became a doctor, with noun phrase as subject complement. Second, George is in the garden, with prepositional phrase as subject complement. And last, Sue seems unhappy, with and last is Sue seems unhappy, with adverb phrase as subject complement. Okay, now let's analyze one sentence from the example above. The sentence is divided into noun phrase and verb phrase. Sally as a noun became as an intensive verb because became is a part of a linking verb. A is a determiner and doctor is a noun. The next category is complex transitive verb. A complex transitive is a verb that requires both a direct object and another object or an object complement. In an object transitive contraction, the object complement identifies a quality or attribute pertaining to the direct object. Complex transitive verbs in English include believe, consider, declare, elect, find, judge, keep, know, label, make, name, presume, pronounce, prove, rate, regard, and think. Note that verbs often belong to more than one category. Okay, now let's see the example. Kate thought John a fool. We can see from the slide that Kate as subject, thought as predicate, John as direct object, and a fool as object complement. Now let's analyze the example sentence. The sentence can be divided into noun phrase and verb phrase. The noun phrase is reduced to the noun occupied by Kate. Meanwhile, verb phrase are divided into three, namely complex verb occupied by Todd, noun occupied by John, and determiner by a, and noun occupied by fool. Let's move to the sixth category, that is prepositional verb. A prepositional verb is an idiomatic expression that combines a verb and a preposition to make a new verb with a distinct meaning. Some examples of prepositional verbs in English are care for, long for, apply for, approve of, add to, resort to, result in, count on, and deal with. Now let's see the example of prepositional verb. The children glance at the pictures. After we can see the example, now let's analyze the sentence from that example. In this sentence, we can divide it into noun phrase and verb phrase. Noun phrase are divided into determiners and nouns. Determiners are occupied by the while, nouns are occupied by children. Meanwhile, verb phrase are divided into complex verb and a prepositional verb and prepositional phrase. The verb is occupied by the preposition. At occupies the determiner, and the pictures occupy the noun. The last category is imperative. The imperative mood indicates the state of commanding. Here's an example of imperative sentence. Sit down and eat your lunch. In this sentence, someone is giving a command. Now let's see another example of imperative. Close the door. We can see that close as predicate and the door as direct object. Now let's analyze the example sentence. The sentence can only be divided into one part, that is verb phrase. Verb phrase are divided into two parts, that is tense verbs and noun phrase. The verb tense is occupied by close, the determiner is occupied by the, and the last noun is occupied by door. Alright everyone, I think that's all my explanation about the verb phrase. I'm sorry for my many mistakes. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatllahi wabarakatuh.